Now, the thing I want to finish with is publication ethics. Publication ethics is a serious thing because you don't want to be caught out by mistake, and it's getting easier and easier now to find people who are trying to cheat. And it does actually mean that the record of science is permanent, so if you do something wrong, it's up there forever, long after you've retired. And so therefore, we've got to be very, very careful. We've got lots of rights and privileges, but we also have to be ethical. Of course, there's things like scientific misconduct, where people making things up, whole images made up, or results changed and so on. That's a whole different area. For publication misconduct, you've got plagiarism, where we're copying someone else's work without citing it. You've got duplicate publication, or self-plagiarism, whereby you are publishing the same thing twice. Duplicate submission, you're sending things through other journals at the same time, it's not good. You should always acknowledge other people, hence the citations. You should always make sure that the co-authors are mentioned, no ghost authors, and of course any conflict of interest should be mentioned. The transparency has to be there nowadays. Plagiarism is interesting because most professions of the world don't have to worry about this, but with researchers they have to. They've got to explain where all the details have come from if it wasn't them. Now, if you're taking information from other places as part of your pulling together your articles as co-authors, and you're using someone else's words as well as going to be citing them, put a citation and put their words in inverted commas, so you know as co-authors that that text isn't your text. Because if you're just going between different people and some people are polishing this and that, you might forget what's yours and what's not yours. And that way it saves you being an accidental plagiarist, because these things get checked, and it's better. You might decide to leave the speech marks in because you can't think of a better phrase, but at least it's very clear it wasn't your text. You're being as transparent as you can be. So duplicate publication, you can publish more than once for specific reasons, like a translation, if all parties agree. Or alternatively, if you published, say, once for, say, physicians, and you want to repurpose that for, say, biochemists, you can take the same data, explain you published it previously for physicians, and explain why you're now going to do a different discussion around the same data to have a different aspect for biochemists. That's possible as long as you're very transparent about these things. Every university uses something called Turnitin to check that the theses are not copied from elsewhere. And that service takes also all the information from the Crossref database, about 55 million articles, adds that to that, and then comes up with a whole interesting database of information, which every submission now is looked at and compared to give an overlap score, or a so-called plagiarism score. Everyone self-plagiarizes slightly. It's a known thing. A few percent, because we write in a certain style. So if you've published many times, we might come back with the same phrasing here and there. It can't be helped. The method can only be written in so many ways. And so all these various things are all aspects of this overlap score. It used to be that only random articles were looked at, normally after a complaint. Now every article is checked. It takes around 15 to 17 minutes per article. It happens between submission and it getting to the editor. It arrives with a so-called overlap score as part of the manuscript report. It's up to the editor to decide to look at this or not. Look at it, it's all color-coded to show what the overlap is with other published material. This happens to be an old article, but it's from the days before we checked everything, so it's a published article here. The thing about this cross-check is it color codes identical text. So the yellow text here is the yellow text there, identical. That text here is that text there, that text is that text, that's that, and that's that. This is, I'd say, a Control-C, Control-V paper. Cut and paste. And that made a new paper. Oh, they found that figure somewhere else. So these people, who are these people, some of these people, made an extra paper. In the days when that particular country was giving bonuses in cash for every paper you published. In the past, when this got found out, it got removed, disappeared from literature. Now, it's not allowed to. Now it has to stay up with a watermark. The National Library of Medicine in the US has said this to us. We have to use this system. So now we do. The watermark is retracted. And in the PDF, in the HTML, it says retracted, and then text about why. If you look this one up, you'll find that people's names are here and their institutes, but at the same time, that's how it works nowadays. That stays up after the researchers have retired, after they've passed on. It's up for hundreds of years. Not good for someone's collaboration prospects, maybe. For figures, you can manipulate a bit because you're trying to make the figure easier to understand for the reader, but there's certain things you can't do. You can change the brightness, contrast, color balance, and non-linear adjustments if you mention it, and you put the original unchanged in the supplementary file. You mustn't move things around, add things, and so on. So it happens. This is a long time back, but this is a great paper, American Journal of Pathology. This is fluorescent cell staining, and there's some great interesting stains here and great discussion around it. Some people took this in Photoshop, they boosted the signal so it becomes brighter, added a spot here, a spot there, a spot there, and a spot there. Turned it upside down and published it in Life Sciences 2004 on a different topic. So when it was found out, eventually, about 2006, it was now has a watermark across it saying retracted. You cannot find that figure anymore except with a watermark across it. So, yeah, it happens. We do have other figure checking software out there, which we are trialing. This is an interesting one. There's actually a group called PubPeer who get together online and actually look for these things to help us, which is great. So, it's interesting, we get a lot of these sorts of, this is slicing and staining. It's your field, you recognize these sorts of things. Various controls, conditions, and so on. Except that is that, and that is that, that's that, that's that, that's that. So this is definitely, looks real, fake. Happens. It's our job as policemen to do these things, to look at these things. This is interesting, another one. The guy published, it's a particular bit of staining. He decided to publish then, rotated it slightly, published it in another paper, published it again. And I'm surprised he was caught before he boxed the compass. So yeah, it happens, I'm afraid to say. So A to E of the same tissue. Yeah, unusual, sadly. This one, just. You've got different organs, and you've got different sorts of treatments, different tissue types and things. So why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Yeah, that's fake. So we're working with the text to actually, we're either taking this down as a retraction with the author's consent or without the author's consent. That's our job. Okay. PubPeer, interesting bunch of people. Online resources, lots of good stuff out there. It's called the Researcher Academy, and then there's a whole bunch of things. And later on, when you get the information link to this as a slide set, there's also be other information about the Researcher Academy, which I'll go into a bit later. Check your university library website. They've got lots of useful stuff there. See what other information is out there. See who might be an editor or a board member of some journals because they're useful to ask advice of. You don't go and stalk them and get them to rewrite your paper, of course not. But you go and ask them, perhaps occasionally if there's some help or their comments on something. And then basically, this is me, well, for the next few years anyway. And this is the Researcher Academy. And here we are 2 hours later. So thank you for your time. We're going to take a few minutes of questions, 2 or 3 minutes. Then we're going to have a break of about 25 minutes. And then if you're going to come back, great. If not, fine. The next bit is going to be all about how to be a reviewer. And if you haven't published yet, what reviewers are we looking for in your paper? So you know what they're looking for. It's useful to know. So anyway, any questions now? Or are we going to... No? Questions? Fine. 2 hours is a long time, I know. Thank you for your patience. So thank you, And I will see, hopefully, all of you and more, maybe, in around 25 minutes. Thank you.